The other tip I'd give, and this is more for when you actually get to the job and you start, is to work out what your knowledge gaps are. So from the very, very beginning, if there's a word that someone says that you don't understand, if there's a particular subject area that you'll show that you're like, what is that? Write it down. Actively go and research what it is. Actively ask for help and say, look, I'm not quite sure what that is. Can someone show me? Can someone explain? However which way, but just make sure that you are keeping track of those knowledge gaps from the very beginning and actively trying to fill them in the best way that you can. Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new, please do hit that subscribe button and welcome to the family. So in today's video, I wanted to bring you some of my top tips that you should consider when starting a new job. So I know how it is when you are about to start a new role, you've got so many mixed emotions. You're thinking about, of course, wanting to come in and smash it and do well, and you don't know what to expect. You've got so much nerves going through your system. I know this because I am currently in that position right now. I'm about to start a new job very, very soon. So I just kind of also sparked the idea for this video because I started to really think about a lot of things that I wanted to sort of put into place before I started the job and also during my first few weeks and months of being there. So I thought it would just be good to share some of the things that have been going through my head whilst I'm preparing to start a new job and some of the things that I will be implementing once I start as well. So yeah, let's just get straight into it. So one of the first things that I think it's important to think about and consider when starting a new job is that it's an opportunity to rebrand yourself. These people don't know you, maybe they've worked with you before, maybe they haven't, but either way, it's an opportunity to really rebrand yourself within your role, within your career, within your subject matter, and really start over. And the reason why I say that is because I think back to when I started my job that I just currently left, and there were so many things that I wished I did differently in the beginning, and things that you can't unchange. You know, the past is the past, it's done, it's dusted. But it really made me think, okay, whenever I do start a new job, these are the sort of things that I would want to do differently, and this is kind of the position that I would want to portray within that new job. These are the kind of things I want to do better. These are the kind of things I want to change. These are the things I want to take with me, etc. But I see it as an opportunity to really rebrand yourself within your role and within the field that you're in, because these people have never worked with you before, and that can be to your advantage because they don't know you, so they don't have anything to compare it to. They can't say, oh, well, Shay used to be like this and now she's not. I mean, they've never worked with you before. Or even if they have, it's an opportunity for them to see a different side to how you work in a different environment. So I always say, like, really look at starting a new role as an opportunity to truly rebrand yourself in every way possible, whether that's upskilling yourself within the actual subject matter that you're an expert in, whether that's trying a different approach in terms of personality maybe. Not saying that you have to completely change yourself. You should still be true to who you are. But it might be that maybe in your previous job, you felt that you were a bit more quiet, or you felt that you didn't really engage with your peers much. And now in this job, you think to yourself, actually, I just want to start getting to know people more. I want to start engaging with people more outside of my department. Again, that's something that I felt that in my previous role that I didn't do as well of. I pretty much knew everybody within my immediate department, of course, but my wider department and some of the key stakeholders that I used to work regularly with. But outside of that, can't really say that I really spoke to anybody else or really took the time to really get to know anybody else. So that's something that I really want to do differently in my new role, of really trying to connect with different areas of the business, and not just areas of the business that are so applicable to the work that I do. So that's just one example, but I always see it as an opportunity to truly just rebrand how you want to be perceived, how you want to be, what you want to be remembered for within the role, the impact that you want to make, the energy you want to bring. All of these things are a real opportunity to just truly just start over. Another thing that I think is key to think about when starting a new role is to really make a list of sort of what you want to learn or be exposed to. So prior to taking the role, you would already have a reasonable idea of what's expected of you in terms of your deliverables, what they actually want you to do in the actual job. But within yourself, you should also have areas that you want to be exposed to, areas that you might want to learn a bit more, or areas that you really want to kind of get stuck into from the beginning, for example. But sometimes it's quite hard when you come in, you don't know what direction to sort of go. Sometimes they might have already a set strategy for you that they want you to follow. But I think within yourself, you should also have your own personal list or own personal sort of bucket of things that you want to focus on and that you want to be exposed to, and really kind of have that as your, almost as if you're kind of have that almost as a sense of direction. Because sometimes when you go to somewhere new, especially if it's like a startup environment or an environment that's less structured to what you might be used to, you might be really confused about where to even start. But if you kind of have already had in the back of your mind, right, when I think about this job, this role, this company, this product, these are the sorts of things that I should reasonably be exposed to. And these are the sorts of things I would want to know and understand about the company, about the job, about the task, etc. And then if you have that, that can really help sort of steer the direction of your ongoing learning and development. So I found that's really helped me sort of thinking about, right, when I think about, so bringing it back to sort of my role, of course that I'm running a department, so I'm going to want to really know and understand the entire operations of the department. What are the pain points? What are some of the gaps? What are the type of tasks that they actually do on a day-to-day? How do all the different tasks within each section of my department kind of tie together? What are the different things that people get involved in on a day-to-day? What are the kind of like targets, objectives, KPIs, etc.? So that for me, it's going to be different to everybody else. But regardless, I already have in my head the types of things I would want to know that I think are going to help me be successful in my role and help me get a good understanding of the grips of what they are expecting of me. So I think before you start your role, really have a think about what are the types of things that I would expect to see. That way as well, you know when you get there, and if you're not seeing these things, then you know that perhaps maybe something's a bit wrong, or it might be something that they're going to learn from you from because they might not have thought about that before. So that's already an area that you're already adding value from the beginning, because you're like, oh, what about this, or what about that? So have a think, write things down, and then use that as sort of like your guidance process throughout the initial sort of first few weeks or months of the role. Another thing that I would definitely recommend doing before you start a new role, and you probably should have already been doing this pretty much before the interview phases, is to really research the company, what they do, what they stand for, what their objectives are, where they're trying to get to, and really try and get as much detail as you possibly can to really get you to understand kind of what the challenges are, or where you feel like you can immediately start adding value from the beginning. Sometimes it might be difficult, because sometimes when you get there is when you can get a better understanding. But whatever it is that you feel that you can sort of know or just find out before you even get there, it's going to really set you up and give you a bit of a head start and a bit of a step ahead in terms of where you feel that you can start adding value, or where you want to sort of focus your time and energy in. So yeah, for me, it was very important to get a good understanding of the company's objectives, their mission, what they're trying to achieve, how they're operating currently, you know, what their customer base currently looks like, what they are hoping their customer base to look like, their future growth plans. All of these things will really sort of give you a good indicator on how your role fits into that vision and what the types of things are that you potentially will be doing or focusing on. The other thing that I would recommend is to start getting into a habit of accommodating your life to fit around your new job. I know that sounds like a very basic thing, because it's like, well, of course. Something that I found is that when I've moved jobs, I've never really given myself a gap in between. I've pretty much gone straight from one job into another. And so I've kind of gone in and kind of had to like figure out how to structure the job around my life, because I was so used to having one structure in place. But I think, you know, you already know that the first few weeks are going to be so intense, because you're learning, you know, everything's brand new. You're probably going to have training. You're probably going to have those mandatory modules to complete. You're going to have like shadowing, etc. So many things are going on. Your brain is going to be literally on information overload. So you want to make sure that you already ahead of starting your new job, that you've already started to structure your life around the fact that for the first few weeks it's going to be busy. So for me, for example, I've made sure that for the first few weeks I don't have any major plans. I also, you know, because I run a wedding business on the side, I've also let my clients know in advance that I am starting a new job, and for the first few weeks I'm probably going to be kind of quiet during the day, but I'll get back to you when I can, etc. I've already made sure that any sort of extracurricular things I do outside of work, I've made sure that it's well structured around those first few weeks, so that I don't feel overwhelmed, because I don't want to get burnt out. And of course, even though you know it's information overload, you can never really anticipate how much it might be. It might even be beyond what you expected it to be, or it might be fine. It might actually be kind of okay. But regardless, I think that it's good to start sort of structuring your life in a way where you know that the first few weeks, maybe the first few months, are going to be really intense while you're really trying to get to grips and find your rhythm. So you want to make sure that your plans and the other things that you have going on outside of work are structured in a way that you're not overwhelmed and that you're not burning yourself out. The other tip I'd give, and this is more for when you actually get to the job and you start, is to work out what your knowledge gaps are. So from the very, very beginning, if there's a word that someone says that you don't understand, if there's a particular subject area that you'll show that you're like, what is that? Write it down. Actively go and research what it is. Actively ask for help and say, look, I'm not quite sure what that is. Can someone show me? Can someone explain? However which way, but just make sure that you are keeping track of those knowledge gaps from the very beginning and actively trying to fill them in the best way that you can. And the reason why this was a key one for me is because this is what something that I feel that I went wrong. Sorry, this is an area I feel that I went wrong in previous roles, where I'd come in and there'd be like, you know, things being said or done that I wasn't too familiar with, but because I felt like I should be familiar with it, I didn't quite ask for help, or I didn't quite make a note of it, etc. And then later down the line, it's come up again and I'm like, oh yeah, I didn't quite know it then and I still don't know it now. And it always doesn't look great when you've been a few weeks or a few months into the role and you're now asking for something that you probably should have known earlier on. So I would say, you know, be comfortable in your knowledge gaps. You're not going to know everything when you start a job. You just got there. They're not expecting you to know everything. They're expecting you to come with a certain level of skill and expertise, but they're not expecting you to come with the knowledge and understanding of the actual product and company because you've never worked there before. So be kind to yourself in that journey and in those initial phases of really trying to understand things, and make a list of it. And if there is somebody that can help you fill those gaps in the role, or if you take time out to find out what those things are, if they've got, you know, resources or documents that you can download and look at to get a better understanding of the product, etc., whatever it is that you need to do, find time to do that. But you'll feel so much better knowing that you took the time to really fill those knowledge gaps in the beginning, because then by the time you're, you know, a few months into the role, you'll feel like an expert. You'll feel like you've been there for a while. You feel like you know everything and you understand it like the back of your hand. You're still going to be learning. You're not going to know everything, but you'll feel so much more comfortable. And a lot of the time, that sort of insecure feeling that you get the first sort of few weeks or months into a job is because you're not quite sure that you know everything, and you're trying so hard to know everything, but you need to understand that you won't know everything. But you probably haven't done a great job of managing those knowledge gaps and finding time to figure out the things that you don't know. So that's something that's been very key for me, and something that I'm going to implement as soon as I start my new job. As soon as I see something that I'm not aware of or getting fully to grips with, I'm going to make a note of it and I'm going to actively find time to fill those knowledge gaps. Another thing that is a good tip for when you actually start your new job is to work out who are the key stakeholders that are going to make sure that you do your job effectively. Who are they? And get acquainted with them. Get acquainted with them very, very quickly. Make sure they know who you are. Make sure you build that working relationship with them from quite early on, so that you know that you can rely on them as a resource for whenever you need that particular knowledge, or whether you need that particular project to go over the line, or whether you need that particular expertise, etc. People who you know are going to make your life easier at work and that are going to make the job easier to do are the people that you want to get acquainted with. They are the bread and butter of your success within your role. And no one can ever come in and say that they can do everything entirely on their own. I mean, some people are individual contributors, so their job really kind of relies on just them to do it. But even those people, there's still other areas of the business that they would probably have to engage with in order to fully be successful within their roles. So I always say, try and work out who those people are very early on. You know, it's probably not great if you're like 6 months in and you realize that there's probably someone in a particular area of the company that can help you do something, but you've not really built that working relationship with them to do that. So I say from quite early on, speak to your manager or your colleagues and find out who are these people that help keep the operations running effectively. Who are these people? Can I get to know them? Book meetings with them. Guys, me and my memory card keep fighting and I keep losing because it keeps telling me my memory card is full when I've deleted everything on there. I don't know. I think I need to get a new one, but I hope I remember where I was. I think I was talking about how important it is to get acquainted with the people who can make your life easier at work. And I don't say that in like a negative way, as in to like use people. I mean people who you actually work with to get the job done, and making sure that they know who you are, making sure that you are acquainted with them. So as an example, I work in a financial crime department, so there are various stakeholders across the business that I would need to work with to ensure our operations are effective, whether that's the product team or the engineering teams or compliance, etc. So it would be very, very important for me from the very beginning to know who these people are and to get acquainted with them, so that when it comes to achieving things and creating strategy, etc., which is a key part of my role, I'm not sitting there thinking, okay, so who do I go to? Who can help me? And just building these relationships from early is very important. Building relationships at work is important anyway, but I think building them from quite early on and establishing those relationships will really, really help you, particularly when you have really important projects that you need to get involved in. So yeah, find out who those key stakeholders are, get acquainted with them from the beginning. And the last thing that I'd probably recommend, which might not be applicable to everyone depending on the type of role that you do, is to see if you can get like new joiner packs or operational structures before you join. So a lot of the time when you are joining, sometimes you don't know what the structure of your department or your team looks like, but really understanding what your team structure looks like can really help you understand how the work is cascaded, where you fit within that structure, how you add value, etc. So you might want to familiarize yourself with that before you start, just to get a good understanding and give yourself a heads up really before you join. So yeah guys, those are my tips for starting a new job, prior and when you get there. What tips do you guys have? What sorts of things do you guys implement when you're starting a new job? I'd love to know in the comments. Make sure you stay tuned for my next video. Make sure you like, comment and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video.